President Vladimir Putin has said a sustainable peace deal with Ukraine hinges on addressing the issue of NATO's eastward expansion. Speaking at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting in Tianjin, he said the West had tried to bring Ukraine into its orbit and then sought to entice Russia's smaller neighbour into the US-led NATO military alliance. His comments followed talk with China's Xi Jinping and India's Narendra Modi at that summit. Within the last hour, we've seen world leaders attending the gathering once again. As you can see there as well, Turkey's leader, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, walking alongside Russia's Vladimir Putin. Well, watching this with us is former US Ambassador to the United Nations, John Bolton. John, good to have you with us. Appreciate you sharing your time. All eyes on Shanghai at the moment. And in previous instances, this has been referred to as the League of Authoritarian Gentlemen or a dictators club. But it's somewhat upended now, isn't it, when you see people like Narendra Modi attending too? What do you make of his attendance?
Well, there's a lot of bad news here, very little good news. The West has spent decades, U.S. in particular, trying to wean India away from its Cold War attachment to Soviet Union, Russia, buying sophisticated weapons from them, and cautioning India on the danger posed by China. This is symbolized by what's called the Asian Security Quad: Japan, India, Australia, and the United States. A lot of effort to make India more amenable to cooperation with these countries. Donald Trump in the past weeks has essentially upended that, and for a variety of reasons now sent India back toward Russia to grow closer to China, and just shredding these decades of efforts to try and change that alignment. I'm not saying this can't be fixed, but it's going to take a lot of work, and I don't see it starting anytime soon. 6
months ago, we would have talked about the bromance between Donald Trump and Narendra Modi of India. And then in Trump's attempt to try and bring some leverage against Putin of Russia in respect to the situation in Ukraine, 50% tariffs on India. And are we saying, therefore, from your perspective, that India has been driven in this direction as much as it's decided to go in this direction?
Well, I think that's right. It's a series of things that Trump has done that have offended the Indians. On the basic tariffs that Trump wants, which I think as a macro level economic phenomena are a disaster for everybody, but the Indians thought they were in close negotiations to solve this, as Britain did with Trump, and Trump just dismissed it and set 25% tariffs. Then carrying through, as you mentioned, on his threat to either tariff Russia or impose secondary tariffs on countries buying Russian oil and gas, Trump whacked India with another 25%, did not tariff Russia, did not tariff China, the largest purchaser of Russian oil and gas. And then to make it worse, when the recent escalation between Pakistan and India over a terrorist attack in Kashmir occurred, it escalated, then came back down. Trump took full credit for it as one of the 6 or 7 wars that he stopped this year to deserve the Nobel Peace Prize, which has made India incandescent.
This organisation brings together a huge swathe of the world. It's kind of a 40% or so of the global population, huge element of the Eurasian landmass, something like 23% of global GDP. And I'm just looking at some of the comments being made by Xi Jinping, and he says that the world should seek integration, not decoupling, have an inclusive economic globalisation, and that there should be a community of common security across the region. This feels like a massive potential reset that the West would really struggle to counter.
Well, this is largely a propaganda show, but it demonstrates...
There's a reality behind it, though.
China's hegemonic ambitions in East and Southeast Asia, Central Asia, the former republics of the Soviet Union, again, all of which the U.S., Japan, Australia, many in Europe have been trying to prevent from happening. But Donald Trump's tariff policies, his unwillingness to consider even beneficial diplomatic moves in a larger strategic context have given Xi Jinping and the Chinese an opportunity. Whether they can exploit it or not remains to be seen.
Where does this leave us with the situation in Ukraine and peace? Because 2 weeks ago, 15th of August, on the Friday, we were focusing on Alaska, Putin and Trump in the presidential car and the Beast driving away from their aircraft. There was all the talk of security guarantees, Steve Witkoff coming and making big declarations following. That feels like a very far cry away now. How does the US and the West respond to what it's seeing and try and bring about that goal of some degree of peace in Ukraine?
Well, I think the whole thing is collapsing. I think the chances for peace in Ukraine are probably worse now than they were before the Alaska summit. Putin has gotten away literally with murder. Whatever he said to Trump in Alaska, he's simply ignoring with increased attacks on civilian targets in Ukraine, no diminution in Russia's military efforts, no concessions, whatever. This speech of his at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization you just quoted, that the real fundamental cause of his invasion of Ukraine was NATO, is something that's the basis for him now to try and restructure NATO. That's what he really wants, as well as possession of Ukraine. No change whatever in Russia's position.
Why do you say the situation's worse now than before that summit?
Well, I think, as hard as it is to predict what Trump will do, I think he will just disengage. He's got a moral equivalence between Russia and Ukraine for who started the war and how it's conducted. I'm very much worried he will now simply back away, maybe continue to sell arms to European countries that can be transmitted to Ukraine. But in terms of any effort to help Ukraine defend itself against this unprovoked Russian aggression, I don't see it.
What should the U.S. be doing?
Well, what we should